New memorial to fallen soldiers in Afghanistan was put up secretly inside the highly secured Department of National Defense, and veterans, families of the fallen, the public, the media, all barred from it. Now, after severe blowback, finally the chief of the defense staff on Friday issued an apology and promised to reverse the decision and make the monument more accessible. But it's all raised questions about the judgment of the military leadership, especially after a damning new details revealed that 4 years after waging war on sexual misconduct in the military, there's been very little progress, according to Statistics Canada. 900 full-time military personnel reported being victims of sexual assault in 2018 alone, and over half of the respondents say they're dissatisfied with what happens after they report it. What more does the military and the government need to do? We did ask the Defense Minister, Harjit Sajjan. We also asked the Chief of the Defense Staff, General John Vance, to join us. Neither were made available. But Karen McCrimmon is a Liberal MP for Ontario. She's also a former member of the Canadian Armed Forces, and she is with us here. Thanks for your service to our country, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Evan.
Let me start with the memorial. Now they've apologized for this. Who made the decision? Because I'm interested in accountability here. That's what your government in 2015 was elected on. Who made the decision to keep the memorial to the fallen members of our country in Afghanistan secret?
I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. I don't know where that decision was made. I read in General Vance's apology that they are going to look into how that decision was made. They realized that a mistake was made, and I think that's why the strength of his apology, the way it was written, it was unreserved, saying we were wrong, we made a mistake, and we're going to make up to it.
He's the boss. To be candid, CTV has obtained some emails from Department of Defense. There's names all over these things about this thing. General Vance, he was there at the ceremony that nobody reported on until days later. Why does someone like you and I and the rest of the country still have no answers? Where's the straight accountability? If he's apologized for it, why can't he say, I did this, I'm accountable?
I think he did say, I'm accountable.
But what does accountability mean in that scenario?
Well, it means that he's accepting responsibility for the decision, whatever the decision was made at what level, in the hierarchy. And it's kind of, to me, it was kind of tone deaf. They should have realized that there would be people, there would be families, mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and children who would want to be there. But the other thing I wanted to highlight to you, this is the memorial that was taken out of Kandahar. This is not the Afghanistan monument. The Afghanistan monument is still under development. Right now, the latest report I got is that the site selection is almost done, and then there will be a proper Afghanistan monument.
This was the Kandahar Memorial.
That's correct.
This thing was started by soldiers, and then those soldiers were excluded from seeing it, and they've had to apologize. You're a veteran. How did it make you feel?
Well, I mean, I'm also an Afghanistan veteran. So I think, as I said, it was kind of tone deaf. I don't understand.
Were you hurt?
I was hurt. I was disappointed. I thought that they could see, and I think the General Vance did mention that in his apology, how much this would mean to people, especially those who had lost a loved one in Afghanistan. So I'm glad he's apologized.
What he said is he wanted to keep the ceremony reverent. And then he said he wanted to make sure that this monument was not vandalized, which, it happens occasionally. But what is, a lot of people are reading that they want to essentially sort of hide away the tragedy of what happened in Afghanistan to those men and women.
I could understand if someone was to say, I want it in National Defense Headquarters so we never forget the cost of war, so that it never becomes an easy decision, and that everything we do to serve the people that we've sent off to war, it's got to be at the top of the list, it's got to be our very best. I get that piece of it. But I also believe that they needed to involve those who had made those sacrifices.
Let's talk about leadership. When General Vance became the Chief of the Defense Staff almost 4 years ago, the first thing he talked about was Operation Honor, trying to stamp out sexual misconduct in the military. According to Stats Can now, that basically has not been done. There are 900 members of the military reported sexual assault in 2018 alone. This has been a failure.
Oh, I'm not going to, I have to disagree with you there, because First of all, it was CAF that asked StatsCan to do that review, to get those numbers. So they know, you know what it says? We know we have a problem. We have a problem, and unless we have a way of tracking what that problem is, we're not going to be able to solve it.
With all due respect, the reason 4 years ago you knew you had a problem, that's why Operation Honor started. You don't get a pat on the back for finding out 4 years later very little's changed. I guess my question to you is, has it shown that whatever's happened in these 4 years has not worked? It needs a refresh.
It needs more. I think we've made tremendous progress, but there's a lot of work to be done.
What's the tremendous progress? Like when you say that,
even a 24-hour call line that you can call and you can get access to support, you can get access to counseling. People are there to help. That was huge. I mean, we started, I think, with the crisis line early, but now it's been expanded to 24 hours availability. And I mean, I joined the Canadian Forces in 1975. That tells you how old I am, right? But it has gotten better. But that does that mean
better than that? Look, we're not talking about better than the 70s. I'm talking about better than 4 years ago. When you have 900 cases of sexual misconduct and assault in 2018 alone, after this, I guess again my question is, and it goes to leadership here, and I'm not trying to throw General Vance under the bus, but the memorial was a screw up. Operation Honor, according to StatsCan, has negligent effect. He is the guy that told CTV News he owns the Mark Norman issue, which is the vice admiral that had his name dragged through the mud with a charge that was recently dropped, the second in command of the military. He said he owns that. And by the way, this week the Prime Minister recommended that he get a raise to $306,000.
Okay.
Is your government, do they still have faith in General Vance or in the Defense Minister, Harjit Sajjan?
What we need is cultural change. And cultural change, it doesn't happen overnight. And what you need is a thoughtful, deliberate plan. There's a book out there, and I think it's called Culture Eats Strategy for Breakfast. Because you can have all the good policies, all the good plans and procedures you want, but if you don't match that with cultural change within the organization, it's not going to stick, and that doesn't happen overnight.
But you need accountability. If these things are, if you admit, look, MPs outside of the Prime Minister apologized in the House to Mark Norman. That was a mistake. You've just said there was a mistake on the memorial. Operation Honor has not been nearly as effective. Who's accountable? If it's General Vance, what's your government going to do about it? If it's Harjit Sajjan, the Minister of Defense, what's your government going to do about it? You were elected on accountability. A lot of people are wondering, where is it?
Oh, I think there's a lot of accountability there. But I think it's better to have people say, yeah, we made a mistake. I would much prefer that than having someone stand up and say, no, nothing wrong here, nothing. Admit you made a mistake. Admit that you didn't make the kind of progress you were hoping, and then redouble your efforts to make that progress.
How do you justify giving the guy a raise in the midst of all this?
Well, you know well that that's a regular scheduled part of the program, raises, and so it's not something
Are you saying they didn't have a choice?
No, it's not something that was directly related to any of these issues. It was just in a normal schedule of things that
to quote a very famous political line from Brian Mulroney, you, sir, had a choice. Is this the week to say, not the day for a raise?
It probably wasn't done this week. It was probably done a while ago, and it just became active. I don't know that. I don't know that.
Is it time for a change or a refresh? Well, given all this, do you believe it's time for a change and a refresh in the military?
In the military?
Yeah, military leadership.
We have to address some issues in the military. Yes, we do. And it takes leadership on board. And this discussion, it'll happen between the Prime Minister and General Vance. It'll happen between General Vance and Admiral Norman. And I think the fact that those
by the way, have not still met.
Oh, I didn't know that, but they will. But they will, and this is their responsibility to deal with this issue.
Okay.
They will, I'm sure.
I got to leave it there. There's lots on the plate. I really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure.